Last night, what did you do before you fell asleep? Not what you meant to do, what you actually did. If the answer is somewhere in the neighborhood of, scrolled until my eyes gave up on me, then stay here. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't a lecture. It's not a productivity hack. It's something quieter than that. And honestly, a little stranger. You have an employee. You've never met them, never learned their name, never once said thank you. But they show up every single night, without fail, and they do some of the most important work of your entire life. While you sleep, they sort through your day, every conversation, every half-formed thought, everything you saw that made you feel something you couldn't quite name. They take all of it, and they build something. And in the morning, if you let them finish, they leave something on your desk, an idea, a clarity, that feeling of waking up knowing something you didn't know the night before, and having no explanation for why. That's them. And most people, without realizing it, are making that employee's job nearly impossible. Every single night. Here's the thing nobody tells you about your brain. It's not resting when you sleep. It's working, actively, purposefully, running processes you couldn't consciously execute if you tried. One of those processes, and this is from research out of Rochester and OHSU, is physical. Actual fluid moves through your brain tissue during deep sleep, and it flushes out the metabolic buildup that accumulates every hour you're awake. Every hour. Awake. Accumulating. Think of your employee mopping the floor, clearing the residue of the day, making space for tomorrow. But here's what happens when you feed your brain input, right up until the moment you drift off. Notifications, videos, the comment section of something you don't even care about. Your employee shows up for their shift, and the floor is covered. They do what they can, but they don't finish. And you wake up the next morning, carrying yesterday's residue, without knowing it. That low-grade fog, that feeling of reaching for coffee before you've even fully opened your eyes. That's not tiredness. That's an unfinished job. And the position you sleep in, this genuinely surprised me. Side sleeping activates the cleaning system more efficiently than sleeping on your back. Your body has been trying to optimize you this whole time. There was just no one to send the memo. Now here's where it gets personal. You've learned something today. Maybe it was small, something you read, a name, a skill you're building. And right now, in this moment, that information exists in your brain in temporary storage, fragile, like a note written in pencil. Your employee's job, the second job after the cleaning, is to make that note permanent, to transfer it from short-term memory into something that actually sticks. Researchers call it sleep spindles, brief electrical signals your brain fires during deep sleep that move memories from one place to another, short-term into long-term, pencil into ink. But this transfer happens mostly before midnight. That's when the deepest stages of sleep occur. That's when your employee does their best work. So if you go to bed at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you're not just sleeping fewer hours. You're arriving at the office after the night shift already packed up and left. The note stays in pencil, and in the morning, it smudges. This is why you learned something yesterday afternoon and couldn't recall it this morning. Not because you're forgetful, because your brain never got the window it needed to finish saving the file. You've had this experience. I know you have. You're in the shower, you're on a walk, you're doing something completely unrelated, and suddenly, out of nowhere, an idea arrives, fully formed, almost like someone handed it to you. You think, where did that come from? That's your employee, handing you the finished work. Jung called it the unconscious. Modern neuroscience calls it the default mode network, the part of your brain that activates most powerfully when you stop trying, when you stop pushing, when you give it space. And here's what your employee is like. They don't respond well to pressure. You cannot demand insight. You cannot force a breakthrough by staring harder at the problem. The more you chase it consciously, the further it retreats. But give them quiet, give them darkness, give them a morning without a screen, and they will deliver. They always do. The problem is, we've built a life with almost no quiet in it. Every commute occupied, every meal accompanied, Every gap between sleeping and waking, already filled, already spoken for, and your employee never gets to finish a sentence. So the ideas stay half-formed, the connections almost but not quite made, and you walk around with this feeling, subtle, hard to name, that you used to be sharper. That something has quietly gotten harder over time. It didn't happen because you got older. It happened in the quiet moments you stopped allowing. Here's the part that unsettles me most. In the best way. Every night, your brain makes decisions about who you are. Not metaphorically, literally. Neural connections that get used, get reinforced. Ones that go unused, get pruned. Quietly, efficiently, without asking your permission. Your brain is sculpting you while you sleep, based entirely on the signals you gave it, before you went under. This is what neuroplasticity actually means in practice. It's not inspiration poster stuff. It's your employee reading the last note you left on the desk, and deciding what to invest in overnight. So if your last hour before sleep is passive, reactive, algorithmically fed, your brain notes what pathways fired, and it builds more of that. Shallow processing, fast reaction, low retention. But if you spend 5 minutes, just 5, reviewing something you actually want to keep, a skill, an idea, something you're trying to become, your brain reads that as a signal. This matters. Remember this. Build more of this. 5 minutes of intentional review before sleep increases memory retention significantly. That's not a wellness tip. That's your employee reading their instructions. Before the night shift starts, leave them something worth building. I want to leave you with this. There's a version of you that wakes up with their full mind available, thinks clearly before the coffee, remembers what they were working on, wakes up and finds, almost inexplicably, that something they were stuck on yesterday has quietly resolved itself overnight. That version of you isn't more disciplined, isn't more talented, didn't buy a special supplement, or do a 4-hour morning routine. They just stopped treating sleep like dead time. They understood, really understood, that the hours between midnight and 7 a.m. aren't the absence of their day. They are the day. That's when the important work happens. That's when yesterday becomes part of who you are, or gets quietly discarded. That's when your employee either finishes the job, or cleans out their desk. And here's the thing I want to be clear about, because people get this wrong. Scrolling every night before bed doesn't change your potential. Your intelligence, your actual capacity, that's still there. Exactly where it always was. But it starves the engine of fuel. A brain that didn't get cleaned, that didn't finish saving what you learned, that spent its night shift buried under input it never asked for, that brain, the next morning, runs at a fraction of what it's capable of. Doesn't matter if your potential is 100 or higher. What you actually get to use that day might feel like 60, 70, not because you lost anything, because you locked it behind a door and left the key on your nightstand, underneath your phone. Your intelligence was never the problem. The fuel was. And here's the thing about your employee. They've been working for you your entire life, silently, faithfully, asking for almost nothing in return. Just a reasonable hour, a dark room, 5 minutes of real instruction before the shift starts, and the basic decency of not being interrupted by 47 more videos right when they're trying to begin. Your brain has been doing this your whole life, building you, quietly, in the dark. The only question, the only real question, is whether you've been letting it. Before 11, side position, 5 minutes of review. Leave the desk clear. Your employee will handle the rest.